Thank you, Christophe. Good afternoon, everybody. As Christophe said, I'm not a vet, I am an agronomist. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a researcher, I am a policy evaluator. For the last 10 years, I have been an observer of the relations between what is being called the stakeholders, the researchers, and the policymakers. What I would like to do then this afternoon with you as a starting point of the afternoon session is to share with you what are the key challenges that I see, that's my personal feeling, as evaluating surveillance programs. And I'm going to use the experience of policy evaluation, as I guess that there is a possibility of transferring a little bit this expertise on a process which is evaluating processes instead of policies. When we talk about evaluations with different actors at the EU level, in different sectors, we see that there is more and more a lack of harmonization of definition, knowing also that the activities related to evaluating processes or activities linked to establishment of surveillance programs or monitoring programs have developed quite significantly in the EU policy framework over the last 10, 15 or 20 years. 20 years ago, the single, for example, monitoring program regarding authorized products was on GMOs. Today, you have monitoring program in the EU policy framework in nearly all regulatory framework when it's about authorized products. So we see that there is this lack of common definition, which at the end of the day leads to a clear lack of common understanding regarding evaluation versus assessment versus review. Even within RISKSUR, when we have discussed this, there was not common understanding about evaluation versus assessment. Is that exactly the same? How do we define that? And also on which is applied this exercise, monitoring versus surveillance. Here again, we can take different definitions, even official definition coming from different areas. Monitoring will have a different meaning. And as I said, this lack of clear definition is not really specific to animal health domain. It's specific to any EU regulatory framework. Now, on this graph, which is quite conceptual, I apologize for that, but what I wanted to show is my perception on how the policy maker is thinking when defining a policy, especially in the field of animal health. But to a certain extent, the approach which is presented here is quite similar when it is related, for example, to plant health. There is a categorization of diseases, and for me it's clear that the decision maker is always considering this categorization of diseases before acting. Acting meaning defining its policy. We can say that, and this is the basis of the new animal health policy, which has been put in place a couple of years ago, which is prevention is better than cure. Leading to the fact that under these categorization approaches, and including the approach of the decision makers, which is here, so moving, for example, in terms of policy interest from public goods, so a global uniform intervention for the interest of any party, to a system where we arrive in the case, for example, of a disease which is very well established all over the EU, and then even to a possibility of deregulation, no need any longer to implement an intervention logic in the sense that it is implemented everywhere, so leave it to the private sector to deal with the disease. And then applying policy on this range and different categories of diseases with the idea of, again, via the new animal health policy, that when it is about emerging disease, re-emerging disease, new diseases, there is very strong interest to have a common approach as large as possible, having a policy then which is prevention is better than cure, and to a certain extent trying to lead to an approach which is eradication at any cost. To a policy development which is going to be completely different, yeah, again, according to the type of disease to be targeted. And when we talk here about cost effectiveness, for the disease well established, it may happen that the approach is really to lead for cost optimization of the routine control programs that have been that are in place at member state level. So, in summary, this differentiation of diseases, this categorization of diseases by the policymaker leads to the selection of surveillance strategies that depends, again, on status of diseases in country regions, depends also on epidemiologic knowledge. Is there any knowledge gaps, yeah, in the way the disease is going to develop or not? Also taking in consideration also the existing policy context. But this is not all. The selection of the surveillance strategy also has to take into consideration what is, for example, the livestock industry structure at a given location, what are the trade patterns, leading, for example, to incentives to exports, and also what are the zoonotic potential. But also, at the end of the day, taking into consideration the potential external factors, for example, the political sensitivity of the issue. All this to say that when we talk about challenges of surveillance programs or evaluation of surveillance programs, we have to consider first the internal challenges, the one which can be described when running the program, when running or evaluating the surveillance program. But also, and for me more important, also taking into consideration the external challenges. So that means that at the end of the day, all the results of a given evaluation have to be placed in the correct policy dimension or policies dimension at both national, European, and into brackets international context, because we know that there is some standards coming from international level. So as related to internal challenges, I mean, I'm not going to go into details on this. These are quite well known, and I think that there is quite good understanding and consensus on this one. The first one, of course, to get the correct answer at the end of the evaluation is to have a correct analytical framework which is being defined when setting up and designing the evaluation. Then a couple of challenges may happen during the evaluation itself, which is identification or observation of data gaps, so how to manage these data gaps. The question when it is about economic evaluation is the unit cost accuracy, yeah? How to make sure that the cost for sampling, for example, at the unit level is well established and that all other external considerations are not taken into consideration. And in this field, also maybe the difficulties in applying certain tools, such as the cost-benefit analysis, when especially it is related to the indirect benefits, indirect economic benefits. Now coming to the external challenges, when all the results of a given evaluation are known, it's extremely important for me to set up an integrated framework for considering all these evaluation results and to a certain extent positioning these results, positioning this evaluation in the policies context. Policy context of food safety also, because this is very much directly related, but also taking into consideration additional policy dimensions such as trade, production, environment, and even consumer. Another challenge which is being faced, which is at the same time internal, external, but I put it here under external challenges, it's the funding and resources availability. We observe, and we observe more and more on member states have difficulties to fund already the surveillance program, but also other official control programs, also then leading to the difficulties to find resources for evaluating these activities. Another challenge that I see there is that these evaluation practices, which are not well developed today, again, in any sector, but and in animal health, have to be, to a certain extent, institutionalized, in a sense that there is a need to transmit the information, to certain member state competent authority, that evaluation is, to a certain extent, part of the surveillance program. And that at the end of the day, I mean, a good surveillance programs include an evaluation exercise. The last but not least challenge that I see there is the potential confusion that some actors can make between evaluation and comparison and benchmarking. I mean, if you take results of evaluation on the same disease from two different member states, one may consider or may want to use these results to compare and benchmark, saying what is being done in one country is better than what is being done in another country. And at the end of the day, I mean, evaluation is not that, but there is really a risk there that this is being used for benchmarking purposes. So this is what I wanted to say to you this afternoon. I know that these are key challenges. So thank you very much.